waited for me to get back into the match. I growled as I got to my feet, feeling the first rush of anger, but he danced backward, lighter on his feet than looked possible from his muscular frame. For a moment I took my eyes off him, noticing over half the class was watching us, and by the time I looked back, a fist was flying toward me. I managed to block it, just, but I was so caught off guard that the next punch tapped me right in the ribs. He pulled it at the last minute, making sure only my pride was wounded. My head wasn't in the game, and Rick knew it. He bowed, a smug grin on his face. If we hadn't been sparring, I'd have thumped him, hard. But there were rules, and I wanted to stay in this class. I couldn't find another that was compatible with my job. As I thought about the waitressing I had to do next, I glanced at the clock on the right-hand wall. It said 7:08. Oh, hell! I was late. The class was meant to finish at 7, and I still had to change, get to the bus stop, and ride to the small strip where the restaurant was. My shift started at 7:30, and I usually walked out of the building with my uniform on. I ran from the room, waving and calling by over my shoulder, but I didn't hold out much hope. One of the parents of a teenager in the group held the door open a fraction of a second before I hurried out. The solid floor of the school corridor outside felt cold against my bare feet, but I ignored the sensation as I hurried for the changing rooms on the other side. My bag was hanging up where I left it. I grabbed it and pulled out my uniform. Not giving a second thought to anyone else in the room as they took their time coming in, the class finished. I quickly took off my gi and the sweaty t-shirt I'd worn underneath it. With no time to even consider a shower or doing more than spraying on some deodorant, I pulled my uniform on and stuffed everything else back in my bag. Only as I was heading back out of the changing room door did I realize I'd buried my purse and my bus fare along with it underneath all my clothes. Trying to root for it with one hand, I shuffled down the hall. I'd gone a few feet when Rick appeared, coming out of the gym along with the last stragglers. "I'll need another month's payment on Thursday, Aella," he said, his eyes fixed on me. "I know. I won't forget," I replied, hurrying on as if it wasn't important. In truth, it wasn't. I never forgot. And I'd only ever been late paying him once. But Rick had never seemed to like my resistance to setting up a direct payment. I gave him cash, at the beginning of every month. As soon as I found my purse, I stuffed it in my mouth and continued to shuffle as fast as I could while I used both hands to shove the loose clothing back in the bag and pull the drawstring to do it back up again. Once the bag was slung over my shoulder, I went to check the time on my phone. I patted my pockets, but it wasn't in them. Shit. I opened the bag yet again and continued to shuffle on anyway. But by the time I reached the door out of the school and into the darkening LA city, I was sure it wasn't in the bag either. I stopped and patted my pockets again, trying to think of when I'd had it last. It must have been while in the building. I could remember checking the time as I arrived. I'd been a few minutes early and enjoyed the hot shower for a bit. Mine was broken. Again. Sighing, feeling the back of my neck and shoulders go tense, I turned and jogged back up to the changing rooms. I was halfway back when another of the women in the class appeared holding my phone. "Found it under a bench not too far from my shoes. Must have slipped off or something," she said as she put it straight into my outstretched hand. "Thanks," I said, my gratitude genuine as she'd handed it over and didn't just keep it. Not that it was worth stealing. It wasn't the latest tech and was more than a little scratched. She'd saved me time and effort, though. As I flicked the screen on to check the time, I groaned. I was more than a little late. All the time I'd made up changing so fast had already been lost. My only hope was for the bus to be late. Jogging back again, I hurried for the door, still the first to leave, but not by much.